Hey y'all, thank you for joining me on another video. Um, it's been a hectic couple of weeks. Um, on top of everything else, I've got to move now. Um, Not because of him or, my ex, thankfully, due to another set of circumstances, but it's all good. It's just been hectic. But something that's been happening um, past several weeks, a month now, that gave me the topic I want to talk about, and that is hoovering. Hoovering is a term that I have only ever heard um, when I started looking up things about narcissists. It goes back to, the vacuum cleaner, how they suck you back into their life. You go to leave, they suck you back in. And that's what my ex did, because I tried to leave him twice before I finally was done with it. And he hoovered me back in. The first time I had left, had a protection order up and everything. Told me all the things I wanted to hear. I vacated the protection order and took him back. The second time I had left, he kept saying, God hates divorce. God wants us to work on this marriage. He used God against me. And I took him back. And, or I went back to him because I had left. And he tried hoovering me this time, almost within weeks of my leaving. And I had a no contact order up. I had a protection order. I allowed that he can communicate through our pastor, well, my pastor, because there was some communication that needed to be done. And so this way, there was a third party, there was a buffer, and my pastor would vet what was said. And if it's something I didn't need to hear, he wouldn't tell me. And the first time he tried it, pastor unwittingly told me something. And I've always had this thing for a man that was dressed well, kind of like, it's hard to explain, like a well-dressed cowboy. And jeans, nice shirt, just looked nice, put together. And he knew it, and he never tried to dress to impress me, even though I always dressed to try to please him. Well, after everything happened, and he always wore a scraggly beard. That beard was so scraggly and it was gross. I don't mind beards. I don't mind facial hair. As long as it's neatly trimmed and, And so after everything had happened, I remember it was Mother's Day. Well, day before Mother's Day. And I had met up with Pastor to give him some stuff that I had of my exes. So in doing that, Pastor and I were talking, and I mentioned about a statue because we talking about Mother's Day, and I said, yeah, the last Mother's Day I got was a statue of a man and woman, each on their own horse, and a couple of weeks before we broke up, or before I called the police on him, he broke that statue just to get mad at me. Just because he was mad at me and wanted to get back at me. I can't talk right today. And I said, and he knew how much I loved it. And Pastor, not thinking, said, oh, so that's what he meant by give Penny her cowboy back. Y'all, I was furious. And I'm like, at first, I'm like, okay, what do you mean? And he said, yeah, because he's wearing his beard and mustache now. It's like the goatee type thing with the mustache and the, like this. And I'm like, poor pastor. He has never seen me that angry. My eyes got like golf balls, and I'm sure steam was coming out of my ears, and Pastor's just looking at me, and I went off on a tangent. I'm like, he's doing that now, when all those years I went off, and Pastor's just like, okay, sorry. And he was trying to hoover me then, because he knew it would get back to me, that he's wearing his beard like I always liked, and that he was trying to dress to appeal me. And I'm like, now he is? And so it didn't hoover me back at all. It did the opposite. It made me even more determined. And then the last couple of months, he's been real subtle about his hoovering, but not so subtle that I didn't catch on. He had been, I don't know, for about the last 6 months, telling Pastor things like he knows he's been a horrible father, he knows he's been a horrible husband, not the husband I deserve, and he'd love a chance to prove to me again, and I deserve an apology, and on and on and on. And it's like, and Pastor thought it was so weird because he's been acting out of the box even for him, which that says a lot. But I caught on, and I told Pastor, I said, you do realize he's trying to backhandedly relay messages to you, because he knows you're going to say things like this to me. And so I went on to explain that when he says things like that, it's not that he means it. It's because in his delusional mind, he's trying to say, he's thinking, okay, I do this, I say this, and Pastor will tell Penny, and Penny will go, oh my gosh, he's changed, so I'll talk to him again. Not. And so that hasn't worked. So now he's trying other tactics, which I won't go into right now. Just suffice it to say, I'm seeing right through him, because I'm noting the time of year this is all happening. I mean, holidays, people are more forgiving. amongst other things, he's going to have to leave the transitional housing soon. And he doesn't want to. He doesn't want to live on his own. And he knows that. I mean, he knows he's going to have to live on his own. And so he's going to try to live off of me. And so, even when, the point of the story is that even when you have a no contact order, they will find a way to try to hoover you back. Like I said, this latest thing, he's trying to hoover me back by doing certain things, thinking that I'll fall for it, and I thank God that I'm not. And yet, it gets back to me that he's bad-mouthing me. Now, how it got back to me, I attribute to God, because this person that it got back to me by would not have known him had she tripped over him, my ex. But he was at a certain place and she happened to be there. She's not paying attention, had no reason to, until she heard my name being mentioned and my kid's name. So she knew that it was me he was talking about, and then in listening to the conversation, she put two and two together and realized that he was my ex, and thinks that she said that he said, yeah, he was my ex, and things that he said about me, and my name is in his mouth, bad mouthing me. I don't even mention his name. A couple of reasons. One being that I don't like saying his name. And secondly, I'm not going to disparage him. But he is bad mouthing me. He's trying to hoover me on one hand and bad mouthing me on the other. Acting like it ain't going to get back to me. The town we live in, though it's fairly decent size, like 300,000 plus people in the city itself. But somehow it's still a small enough town where word gets back to me. I don't know, it's just I know more people than I think I do, or what, but word always gets back to me. But that's what narcissists do. They will try to hoover you on one hand and badmouth you on the other. And they will try to hoover you in all kinds of what they think is sneaky ways. And that's why you got to be one step ahead. And you got to think like them. You got to remember what you knew about them and apply it. Because that's how I'm able to see all of this stuff. Because I will say that my ex is an actor of Oscar-winning caliber. I mean, he can give Oscar-winning performances. I've seen him do it when we were together. And I've heard about it through second and third hand since we've been apart. And I've even had a couple of people believe it until I break it down for them, and they're like, oh, okay, yeah. And That's what he wants. A narcissist will use anyone and anything that suits their purposes. And they don't care who. I mean, my ex uses my pastor. And I've warned my pastor, look, don't let him use you. You gotta have strict boundaries with him and don't bend. Because if you bend even this much, he'll take this much. And he used our friends. We had a couple of mutual friends that he tried to use. One, he had one friend relay a message. This is when, within a few months of when everything went down. And to relay a message, because there was a summer storm coming. We're in Nebraska. We get storms. And it's like, have Penny be careful because this storm is coming. Make sure she knows about it. Translation, you wouldn't be safe if I wasn't around to tell you about these storms. And the friend even told me that he had told my ex, Penny is probably like me where she doesn't watch the news very often, but I'm sure she keeps up on the local stuff, which I do. And then there was a shooting about a mile or so away from me. And he brought that up. And he knows I got this thing about feeling safe. And it was his way of trying to help me not feel safe, so I'd be willing to take him back. And he was using a friend. And this friend we had known for over 20 years. And I told the friend, I said, first of all, do not let him use you. Because he will use you just to relay messages like this to me. And that is the only reason he will talk to you. He used a fellow church member, crying and carrying on to this church member being a literal blubbering idiot. And this church member not knowing everything, because I hadn't told, the pastor was the only one that knew at the time. And this church member calls me genuinely wanting to help, wanting to know what was going on. And I'm like, don't let him use you. And then I proceeded to educate him, and he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, yeah. So he's doing this just so knowing that it'll get back to me. And then there was another friend that he would only call when he wanted to talk about me. And the friend got mad and said, look, that's not a friend. If you're just going to use me to try to relay messages or talk about, no, she's out of the conversation. You want to talk about the weather, you want to talk about fishing, guns, I don't care. But Penny is off limits in conversation. Hasn't talked to that friend in a good while, but we've known that friend for, 27 years. And he did the same thing with another friend that we've known for over 30. And when the other friend figured it out, he's like, yeah, come to think of it, I haven't heard from you in quite a while. I said, yeah, because he knows that he can't use you. Because if he knows he can't use someone, he'll discard them and not even care about them. And I've seen him do that too many times with our friends. And I'm grateful that I have friends that see. So many stories I hear um, of uh, abuse victims not being believed, and they lose a lot of so-called friends because of it. I'm grateful that didn't happen to me, but I do know that I had to block two so-called friends. Um, there was two of them that I knew were friends with me and friends with him on Facebook, and I knew that anything I posted on Facebook, they would report to him. And I had zero tolerance, so I immediately blocked them. I didn't give them an opportunity. I don't consider them friends, because if they're going to do that, play one against the other, they're not friends. But I'm kind of rambling. I just want you to be aware that, especially around the holidays, when people are nostalgic, kind of lonely, because the holidays can be very lonely, um, and want to be more forgiving. But as I've said in a previous video, forgiveness doesn't mean you take them back. Forgiveness just simply means you let go of the bitterness. You don't harbor the anger. Yeah, you have every right to be angry. And I still get angry at him. I just got angry at him today because I got triggered a little bit. Because in packing my stuff to move, I came across some things that I forgot I still had. And it had all kinds of anger welled up in me. And I had to put myself in check. But, so you still have the right to have that anger. But don't let it consume you. Because if you let it consume you, then they still have power over you. Even though if they're out of your life, you don't talk to them, you don't see them. If you allow that anger and bitterness to ruminate, they still have power over you. And so be careful if they're trying to hoover you, and don't fall for their lies, because that's exactly what they are, lies. A narcissist will promise you the moon if he or she thinks that they can get you back. And that's called future faking. They will promise you anything. You wanted a mansion, they'll promise you a mansion. You wanted $1 million, they'll promise you $1 million. And even come up with a way that they can get it for you. So once you're gone, stay gone. Don't talk to them. If you have kids and you got to talk to them, a lot of states have websites now where you can communicate strictly on this website. Find a third party to communicate with, but don't let them back in your life, because they will get 10 times worse. I promise you. Because when I took him back the first time, the physical abuse stopped, because there was something to call the police on. He knew that if he left bruises on me, I could call the police again. So the emotional abuse ramped up. And then after the second time I left, it started getting worse and worse, to what led to the day I left. And then what got him in a worse position with me and hating me and yelling at me and abusing me, I see now, is because he started seeing that he was losing control, because I was no longer giving him the reactions that he wanted. He was seeking certain reactions and I wasn't giving it to him because I started seeing into it. He started seeing that he was no longer having control and it scared him. So, and they will do that. Each time you take back the narcissist, in their mind they think, okay, they must be okay with the abuse so I can do more. And they get worse. So don't take them back. You have a good day and a Merry Christmas, and may your New Year's be blessed. Stay blessed. Bye.